Hello, it's me. Hey, back for, I guess we could call this episode two. I did come up with the name for this podcast that I would like to do, and so I'm calling it Give Me the Anecdote, which everything, a lot of this is going to be story and movie based. So I had in my head when I saw the word anecdote of Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, where like at the beginning of the movie where he's trying to get the antidote. So I don't know, for some reason I have that like in my head. So came up with "Give Me the Anecdote." Give me, because I want this to be about stories. We had the first episode telling Shayla's story. So I was really excited to do that. I've been wanting to do it for a while, and so that was awesome. And she was just great and so open and willing to share and willing to talk about a lot of things, a lot of difficult things. And again, not that we got to everything, but we got to a lot, and kind of really understand somebody like her. When you hear that story, you understand her better, I think, and a little bit more. So I really appreciated her doing that. It was awesome, and I really want to do more interviews like that. I do want like to do more interviews as part of this podcast, but I don't want it to just be interviews, and I don't want it to just be really heavy material like it was with Shayla. Like that was a story that I wanted to tell, or I wanted her to tell. And I've talked with other people that have stories too that I'm hopeful that I can talk with them and see if they'd be interested in also sharing their stories, because there's a lot of other people that, again, maybe can relate to other stories out there as well. So I do want that to be a part of it. So just FYI, I'm going to, there's going to be some of you that I'm going to reach out to, and don't freak out. And don't think that we're just going to have to analyze your life necessarily, because really I really want this also to be fun and informative. So, really, may just get, like family member on just to talk maybe family stories, and just talk friendships or relationships or something, get people on to talk about movies, their favorite movies or music, or, just different things. So I would like it to be, maybe we get to know people a little bit better and their story. And so, yeah, we may have some tough stories like Shayla's, but I'd also like to have a lot of good stories and a lot of good moments. And I don't want to call them, maybe some won't be interviews, maybe it'll just be like an interaction, us just, talking, kind of Joe Rogan style or something. So I want to do that, but I also want this to be other things as well. Kind of the three things that I set in my mind that I wanted to at least get out, if I can only like pick three things that I wanted to communicate. So I came up with three that I wanted, which was, I want to make you laugh, I want to make you cry, and I want to teach you something, or I want you to learn something when you come away from this. So those are kind of like the three things that I wanted. So it may not necessarily be like all three in like one episode necessarily, but in the end, like that's kind of what I want to do. So I have like, I want to talk. I want to talk about a little bit of everything. Honestly, I want to talk about like current events. I want to talk about the news and our aversion to it. I've got opinions on a lot of different things, and I think part of this is I think I kind of want this as a platform to be able to talk about some of these things that I don't get to talk about very much, especially living in the state of Alabama. It's kind of hard to talk about some of these things without getting, mowed over with, they're going to take our guns, or, talk like that. So it's just hard to talk about some of these things. So I do have things that I want to talk about. I also wanted to use this as kind of a platform too for me to maybe control myself a little bit better when talking about some of these sensitive subjects, because some have seen me in action. I can get pretty passionate about certain subjects, and can get really emotional about it, and can get really animated. And some of that is just it's just how I talk. I don't mean anything by it a lot of times, but I do recognize that it can be really off-putting, especially if I do want to make a good cogent point, and I want to be heard. Talking down to people or being aggressive and emotional, it's just not helpful. So I want to also take this up as kind of an opportunity for therapy for myself, to be able to talk about things like this and not let emotion take over, and be fair to people. So anyway, so that's kind of what I wanted to get out of the podcast. And then I also wanted to do movie reviews as well, and maybe music reviews, but review certain things that I like. I mean, I love movies, and I really have not kept up with movies as much as I used to these last couple years, and for obvious reasons probably. And I really want to get back into it because there's a lot of good movies that I've missed, and so I really want this to kind of use this as a vehicle as well to start watching movies again, and then I can talk about them and review them. And some of them may be new, some of them may be older, and again, may do it the same with music and some other pop culture stuff as well. So yeah, I want to talk about a little bit of everything, just delve into everything. Just I do want to get my thoughts out on these, but I also want to get people in the room with me, and it would be cool to interview people that know a little bit more about theology than I do, and maybe I could talk with them about stuff like that. So there's just I don't know, just I've got some ideas of people I want to reach out to and what I'd like to do. So anyway, I want to try to do something like this weekly if possible. Maybe every 2 weeks or maybe a couple times a month or something. But I want to at least put something out regularly. So I'm going to shoot for trying to do something at least once a week. So so that's kind of like I just wanted to give an idea of kind of what to expect from these podcasts. Again, I can't say enough how thankful and happy I am that Shaela, agreed to do the interview. She was awesome. She just really opened herself up, and she was just welcoming of any question that I asked. And, if it's just something that she didn't want to talk about, we just moved on. And she didn't take anything personally, and she just, bore her soul out, and really appreciated it. And it was awesome. I can't thank her enough. And I hope somebody gets something out of it. And, if you haven't seen it, or if you've seen some of it, if you can, try to give it some time. Again, I got stopped recording earlier, so I'm not sure everything that I've said, but I'm trying to put things out on video, but also audio as well, because I've been putting them on Spotify, which I didn't know you could do that for free, but apparently you can. So I've putting the audio out on this as well, because I know that some of this can be kind of long and you're just focusing on the video the whole time, and so it might be easier just to listen to it. So like if you're doing like a chore at home, that's usually what I do, and I listen to podcasts. I'm cleaning or doing something, or I'm driving down the road. So if it's easier for you to listen, you got that option. I appreciate anybody that gives me their time to watch and listen to any of these. I really appreciate it, because I know a lot of these have been really long. So I appreciate your time, and so I want to try to make that easier. If people did want to listen instead of have to watch it, then they have that option. So I'm going to try to do that. And then the last thing I'm going to do as a setup here as well is just say until they are returned that I still do not have my home videos. I'm not talking about any of that anymore. I appreciate anybody that listened to what everything had to say on that subject. This is the last thing, and it's like the last way to just disrespect me at the end. I don't know why she's doing it, but was able to get in touch with her through somebody recently and asked her the same thing, asked her to please just ship them to me and I'll pay for it. Just let me know how much it is and I'll pay for it. And basically said a lot of words to basically say that she's going to give them to me when she's good and ready. That's basically what it means. And she's already had them for 2 years. So who knows how much longer she's going to keep them before then, oh yes, now you can have them. So that's all I want to say about it, because I can get fired up about it. And again, controlling emotion talking about this stuff. So so we'll move on from that, but I am going to continue to say that until I get them back, because it's been probably over 6 months now since I started putting this out there. So all right, with that out of the way, so kind of want to get into the meat of what I wanted this episode to be about, which was a movie review. So kind of wanted to do something fun for this next one. So I've been down in Florida all week, and I've gotten a lot of time outdoors, but I had like some time today that I really wanted to watch a movie. And so I was on Daytona Beach, which is a really cool movie theater, like right next to the racetrack. So pretty cool area. And so I went and watched a movie that I'd been really wanting to see, was really excited about. I'm going to see if I can get the name right on the first try. The Unbearable Weight of Massive Genius. So that is the new Nick Cage movie that's out. And if you know me at all, you know that I love Nick Cage and I love his movies. And I love how crazy he is. He's nuts. He's out of his mind. And I'm actually going to probably I'm going to put some things in the link here so that you can go back and watch. So if you're going to look in the comments of this, I'll put some links for some of the stuff I'm talking about. So I'm gonna put a link of the trailer for this movie below, and then I'll also put a video of just Nick Cage just losing his shit, and that's actually what the video is called. So I'll put a link to that. It's really funny because it just shows all the exaggerated moments of Nick Cage and like why I love him so much as an actor, because he's so over the top and fantastic. Um, so. I was really excited about this movie because, for anybody that doesn't know, it's really a parody about himself. So the movie, he's playing himself, kind of a movie version of his life, and so it's very tongue in cheek, a lot of comedy to it. So again, it's got the massive weight of. Wait, let's see. I think I already got it wrong. The unbearable weight of massive genius. Yeah, there we go. So stars Nicolas Cage. It also has Pedro Pascal, which I wasn't too terribly familiar with him. Every time, on the commercials, they always said his name, and I heard people, oh, Pedro Pascal's in it. And I'm like, so what is he from? The only thing that I really recognize him from was, I think it was Triple Frontier. Does that sound right? The Ben Affleck movie where they're robbing in the jungle and everything. I do remember him from that, but I think he's done more TV stuff. And again, if you know anything about me, I don't watch a lot of TV shows, so I think he's more famous from that. But anyway, he was really good in it. And then it's got Neil Patrick Harris in just kind of a small role. And then he's got a daughter, and the daughter, I thought she looked so familiar. I mean, she does. I thought I've seen her in something, but I looked up her bio, and she hasn't really been in a lot, nothing that I've really seen. But I did find out that she's Kate Beckinsale's daughter. So I think her name was Lily Sheen. So it's Kate Beckinsale's daughter's in it. So, and let me see who directed it. I've never heard of the director before. It was Tom Gormican. He only directed, I saw just one movie before this, which didn't get great reviews. But so this one on Rotten Tomatoes got a 87% on the tomato meter, and then 87 also on the audience score. So usually I lean more towards the audience score on that. And so when I see 87 and 87, that usually means it's going to be a good movie. So I was pretty excited about it and went to go see it. And so the premise of the movie is Nicolas Cage, and he's kind of playing like an exaggerated version of himself. Because first of all, his look is just the hair. Like we have to mention the hair. I mean, the hair is. Like, if you look at Nick Cage movies, he's had like 97 different, combinations of hair and hairstyles, and like thinning hair, thick hair. I mean, just every movie is just like, it's almost like a joke. I don't know if he's doing it on purpose, or if he just likes because he gets hair, he's got to get hair plugs and hair transplants. So he just likes to go for something new every time. And so I've never seen him have this haircut before. I don't know if, I can't remember. It might have been the same in Mandy. That was the last Nick Cage movie I saw, but I don't remember a lot of it because it's been a minute. But anyway, just his hair is just hilarious, and the beard's hilarious. You don't really see a lot of bearded Nick Cage. He was in Mandy as well. So anyway, he's playing an exaggerated version of himself that's like, he's kind of washed up, he's kind of like, oh, Nicolas Cage, he'll just take any role. And, so the movie's like starting off with him, talking to a director and like really just desperate for the role, to the point that he like, stops the director and like acts in front of him, and like, it's really bad acting. So it's like, it's very tongue in cheek, like it's being an exaggeration of like, oh, Nick Cage, he's so washed up now, he's so down on his luck. So it's really exaggerating that, but the movie's meant to be funny, so it's a funny movie, and so he's wanting this part, but he doesn't get it, and so he decides that he wants to retire acting. And the thing you got to remember with this movie is it really is winking and nodding at you the whole movie. And what I mean by that is that it's making fun of movies. It's a movie making fun of movies, basically. It's kind of making fun of Nick Cage too. Like, it's specifically, he's kind of the star of it. But really, what the movie's about is it's just kind of like making fun of movies and what we love about movies so much, and why we love movies. That's really what the movie's about. It's about like people that love movies. This is why we love movies, and so that's really what the movie's about. So just like kind of keep that in mind. And so he decides that he wants to retire from acting, and so but he gets like this offer to come to like this island, or this really nice mansion by the sea, and he doesn't really know why. I think I didn't really take notes while I was watching this movie, so forgive me if I don't get the plot exactly right. I can't I think the reason that he went there is the guy sent him a movie script, which I think Nick Cage's agent was like, "Oh, it's terrible. Don't worry about it. But you can go to this guy's really nice house and really his mansion." So he goes and he's kind of treating it as like a vacation. But the guy, Pedro Pascal, he is really interested in like telling Nick Cage about his idea for a movie, his movie script, and he wants Nick to convince Nick Cage to act in it. And so that's what he thinks is going on with this. When Nick Cage is just there just to just have a good time. And so there's a really like funny scene at the beginning where like Pedro Pascal's character, he owns the mansion, at least that's what you understand at this point in the movie. And but Nick Cage doesn't realize that, so he just kind of talks to him kind of like he's just the boat driver. Like that's how he sees him. Oh, this guy's just driving me there. He's just the boat driver. And then it gets there and he just kind of says some off the wall stuff about Pedro Pascal's character, and then like so anyway, where is this guy? And he's like, oh, I'm him. And Nick Cage kind of has this, and he does like this, which I feel like is like, yeah, a really good nod to like maybe something that Nick Cage might actually do that would be crazy. And of course the guy just does it back. And so what you realize about the guy is he's a huge Nicolas Cage fan. He's like his favorite actor. So he's obsessed with him, and that's why he wants him in this movie. And so like, even though he's this really wealthy person that Nick Cage is just kind of like, trying to buddy up with, he's like being almost like childlike with Nick Cage because he's so excited because he loves his movies so much. So again, this movie's about movies and movie lovers. And actually that's something that, Nick Cage, I love about his character in this movie, because it's like he has a hard time relating to people, at least like with their story or listening to them. But it's like as soon as anybody starts talking movies or his acting career, like he's just immediately, and he can just go and he just and can talk for hours. And so he finds his mate with Pedro Pascal's character, because they just talk endlessly about movies and just have all these opinions and anyway. So they're talking movies and loving movies, and Pedro's trying to convince him to do the movie with him. And, Nick Cage is like, well, I'm retired. So, and I can't remember if I said this, like, about like, yeah, I wanted to make sure I mention his daughter, because again, the movie is kind of winking and nodding at you the whole time. So it has like the very cheesy, basic plot points of like, oh, he's got a daughter that, and he's divorced, and he's kind of the father that's never there, and he's really trying, and he's really struggling to have a relationship with his daughter, but he's just messing it up, kind of that, that we've seen a million times in movies. So, and that with the wife too. So the women have very stereotypical, action movie characters, which is just basically just tangential, like, oh, I really got to get back to my daughter. I got to help my daughter or my wife, or, whatever, those kind of things. And the, the daughter and the wife are obviously, they're always the straight person. They're always the, like they see what's going wrong and they see all the problems, but they can't really do anything about it. So kind of very stereotypical characters as far as that goes. And so, it's like when he's in therapy with his daughter, like trying to, talk and like relate to her, like, all he can talk about is himself and all he can talk about is movies. And he just gets so excited about movies. And so she just feels like very not connected to him because she doesn't care about those things like he does. So anyway, so then he goes to this mansion and staying with the guy, Pedro Pascal, and he's trying to get him to do the movie with him. And but I actually forgot to say at the very beginning of the movie, there's a scene that seems it just starts off this way, where it's a couple watching a Nicolas Cage movie. It starts off with a Con Air, which is great. Like, and they get it a great scene, like at the end, where he's like, I'm going to get a haircut, just the most awful Alabama accent ever. I love that character. So they're watching Con Air, and anyway, the guy, I think he gets up to get something and he gets killed, and then the girl gets kidnapped. And so then the movie goes to Nick Cage. So that's the beginning of the movie, and then so you don't really know what's going on. And then come to find out that there's a CIA is surveilling this mansion because they believe that girl has been abducted by Pedro Pascal. So they hook up with Nick Cage, and they basically convince him to to wear a wire and to spy on Pedro Pascal to find out where this girl's being hidden. So it's again classic movie stuff there, right? So we're like doing spy stuff. This is supposed to be like a movie about, this guy's real life behind the scenes. And it's like, very obviously turning into a movie plot, obvious movie plots of, oh, there's a kidnapping and we gotta, the CIA, you gotta wear a wire and go covert. So very, obvious storyline and plot line there. Again, doing that on purpose. And so he agrees to eventually, he's reluctant, but then he finally agrees to. And then so he's, yeah, I guess I really don't need to break down the movie any farther than that. Excuse me, I'm still learning on this. But yeah, I don't really want to do any spoilers or anything like that. But so that's basically what the movie's about is, and so to stay, Nicolas Cage agrees to help him with the movie and everything. So he's like, so he can spy on him. So okay, I have to stay longer, and so I can spy. So that's what the movie's about. And it has a lot of things that it really reminds me of. Right off the bat, it started reminding me of Birdman, that movie with Michael Keaton. It was kind of Michael Keaton's comeback movie, and it's kind of a similar storyline where he's a washed-up actor as well who is trying to do a Broadway play, and he's Michael Keaton, so he used to be Batman in the 80s and the early 90s, but in this movie it's kind of himself, but he used to be Birdman. And so he's got this Birdman that's talking to him the whole movie, and he's really like, it's kind of like that bad voice in the back of your head that just tells you, nags at yourself and just tells yourself terrible things and everything, you're terrible and you're awful, that voice. So the Birdman will like appear in the room with him and be talking to him and saying things to him, or he'll just hear him in his head. So Nicolas Cage has this moment in the movie where it's like a younger version of himself will come sit down. He's got the long hair and the leather jacket and he's all cool and he's very Nick Cage. He's acting, like way overacting every line and everything, and he's just way over the top. So, so he'll come in at several points in the movie and, you're Nick bleeping Cage, right? And so like he's kind of like pushing him to be like, no, you got to be you're the greatest actor in the world and you got to show them all. And, and Nick Cage, he's really like wanting to be like, well, I think I need to be there for my daughter and all this stuff. And so that was one movie that it reminded me of. It also kind of gave me some Fight Club vibes too, which if you haven't seen Fight Club, this is going to be a spoiler, but it's a 20-year-old movie, where it's where Brad Pitt, he's the imaginary friend that Edward Norton has, and that fight scene in the garage where, Brad Pitt's beating him up, and there's like nobody there, but it's like all in Ed Norton's head. And so he kind of had a couple of moments like that with his character where like he like hits him, and then he like picks him up and he just makes out with himself. and the other him likes it too. I think he grabs his butt at one point. His own self's butt. Anyway, so that was another movie that reminded me of. And then the biggest movie though that it really had reminiscences to, reminded me of, was another Nick Cage movie actually, Adaptation. So I don't know if anybody's ever seen that movie. It's kind of off the beaten path a little bit, but it got really good reviews. I really liked it. It had great acting. It's Nicolas Cage, Meryl Streep. Chris Cooper's in it. I believe he won an Academy Award for being the toothless Florida man in it. And so, but this movie really reminded me of that movie Adaptation, which that's a 20-year-old movie too. I don't need to keep doing that. That's a 20-year-old movie too. And so in that movie, it's written by Charlie Kaufman, who is of Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind fame. And Being John Malkovich, that was his big breakout movie. But he wrote this movie Adaptation, and it's directed by Spike Jonze, one of my favorite directors. And basically the movie is about himself. So Charlie Kaufman writes it's Charlie Kaufman. And in this, he has a twin brother. And I don't know if he has a twin brother in real life, but so in this he does. And so that's the thing about the movie. It's the same thing as the Nick Cage movie. It's like an exaggerated version. But it's also where like, hey, is this a movie about real life or is it a movie, right? And so it's like, it starts off as like, oh yeah, this is going to be like serious and just about somebody's life and their struggle, because that's what he's trying to do. He's trying to write, in this movie Adaptation, he's trying to write an adaptation, a screenplay for, it's based on a book that's basically about this woman that goes out to find this rare orchid in Florida. And so it's like, the movie is him wrestling with trying to turn that into a movie. And so the movie, it's kind of like it breaks down the fourth wall and just, for clarity's sake, if anybody doesn't know, like breaking down the fourth wall just kind of means that, you know, that the movie or the book or the play or whatever is talking to you, acknowledging that, hey, this is a movie or a book or a play. We know that this what this is, and we're letting you know that. So if you're tearing down the fourth wall, then you're basically like, you know, talking to the audience and winking and nodding at them, like I said. So both of those movies do that, where it kind of like it blurs the lines between, you know, he's talking about, okay, well, here's the script that I want to make in the adaptation movie. He's talking about the script that he wants to make, and he's like, oh yeah, and like he's like, yeah, we could start at the very beginning of time, and then we show people being born, and we show evolution, we show this, we show that, we all through time, and there's other things that he talks about in the movie too, that like, oh yeah, you can't put this in a movie, you can't put inner monologue in a movie. Well, the whole movie he has inner monologue, so it's kind of like everything that he's like talking about, like, oh, this should be in the movie, or you can't ever do this in a movie, it eventually shows up later in the movie. And it's kind of like nodding that, like, you know, hey, yes, we are acknowledging that this is a movie, you're watching a movie based on a movie, you know, so for lack of a better way of saying it. So adaptation does that really well, where, again, the things that he talks about writing for his movie ends up actually happening in the movie. And it really derails and you know, gets way overcomplicated, where Meryl Streep's out, you know, making naked pictures out in the swamp with this guy. Like, it's like the story gets very preposterous at the end. So so that movie's kind of like, this movie's kind of like that as well. It's more in a funny kind of way. Not that there wasn't, you know, humor in adaptation, but that was very much darker movie. And then also when I was talking about, you know, the CIA getting involved, like, oh, it's a covert operation, you know, because they think that this guy, he's like a drug lord, and he's just done terrible, awful things. So, so it's just got, you know, it's got that element to it. And then there's just like, you know, it's got a drug scene in it, and it's, you know, it's nothing crazy. Like, it's like hey, do you want to do some acid? And he's like, F word, yes. And like, so they do acid, and it's kind of again, one of those funny scenes, kind of homage to, Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas and Wolf of Wall Street, where it's the funny drug scene, but it's really over the top, and it's, you know, it's doing it on purpose. And they have this really funny scene with jumping over a wall, which I'm not going to ruin that, but it's really funny, and because they're doing a lot of classic movie stuff in that scene, like, it's stuff that like gets you really reeled in. And that's actually the great thing about this movie is, you know that it's being silly. You know that it's satire. So you know that all these situations, like, oh, they're getting involved with the CIA, and the drug cartels, are they going to find them out? So like, oh, and I hope he makes everything right with his daughter and his ex, you know? And so it's like, you know that it's a movie, you know that it's silly, you know that it's all cheese, but I was still invested in it. Like, I was still interested in like the story, like, oh my gosh, what are they going to do? How are they going to get out of this? You know? So even though I knew that I was watching a movie about movies, you know, it did a really good job of like still having me invested and like interested on the edge of my seat. And I mean, it even got like some tears at the end of it, you know, and it had the cheesy, you know, moments. So yeah, so, you know, it really, it held my attention, even though, you know, I knew that what I was watching was just silly. And they did a good job of talking about this, because, when Pedro Pascal was telling Nick Cage that, you know, you don't need to be retired. You have a gift, and you need to share that gift with the world, and all this, you know, really cheesy BS. But he's like, you know, letting him know that, you know, like, people relate to his movies, and so like they may struggle in their life, and they may have this or that, but with movies, you know, that we can relate to them, and we relate to those characters, and it's powerful to us. And I thought that was a really good, like, probably like message of this movie. It's silly as though it may seem, you know, Nicolas Cage making fun of himself, and the movie making fun of itself. You know, as silly as that may seem on the surface of it, it really is. That's what the movie's about. It's about like our love of movies. Like, if you love movies, like, this is for you. And now, you know, it's mostly leaning towards men in this. You know, I get that. Like I said, the women have very stereotypical characters. So, you know, it's the, you know, two guys that they kind of become bros, right, through their common interest of movies. So they become like best friends. And so, you know, it is all drawn through movies, because Pedro Pascal tells a story about him and his dad being brought together through a movie. That's the thing I was trying to think of. So it kind of like gets the point home of like how powerful and movies can bring us together. And so, you know, it is about fandom. It's about fandom going overboard. There is a scene where, you know, Nick Cage is looking for the kidnapped girl, and he ends up being shown a room by Pedro Pascal. Like it's like a secret room, and it like seems really ominous, but it turns out to be like a room completely devoted to Nicolas Cage. Like everything in there is Nicolas Cage and like stuff from his movies. There's a Nicolas Cage pillow, which I actually have a friend that has a Nicolas Cage pillow. He may have two, I don't know. Um, and then there was like a life-size Nicolas Cage from Face Off with the golden guns. So, and it was just great, really good. And they've said the line in the movie, so I can say it here, or excuse me, in the trailer. But he's like, he's like, how much did you pay for this? And he's like, $6,000. And Nick Cage is like, I'll give you 20,000 for it. He's like, wants the statue of himself. It's like really hilarious. So it's like they have that commonality as friends. It's like Nick Cage, like I said, he can talk movies all day long, and so can Pedro's character, and so they really bond over that. So as a person that loves movies, and obviously I love Nick Cage, but I really like kind of identified with that and saw that in the movie, and like yeah, I mean sometimes movies can be silly, sometimes they can be cheesy, and like we know what we're watching, but we're just having fun, and like we still can relate to stories being told too, even if the surface of the movie may seem cheesy, like this one. I mean, it seems dumb, a movie about Nicolas Cage making fun of Nicolas Cage. Well, that's one of the reasons I love this dude, is like he's willing to do that. He's willing to make fun of himself, because they mention a lot of his, terrible movies in it. And they mentioned the movie Tess, and like the guy was like, that was the movie that the guy was talking about with his dad. And so like, there's like a scene later where like Nick Cage, he's like rewatching Tess. I think it was, I've never seen that movie, but anyway, so they kind of just are and then when they do show like clips of his movies, like Con Air, what else did they show? Did they show The Rock? I don't know, but they would show like movies that he was in, but like a really over the top like scene. So every time you wouldn't see like just a normal Nick Cage acting. It would always be like one of his weird, crazy moments, like in the video that I'll link. So I did love that. So anyway, I don't really want to ramble too much about it. I do want to give it a good review. I thought it was a great movie. I really loved it. If you like Nick Cage, I think you'll love it because it's just a lot of homages. As it talks about movies. If you love Nick Cage movies, and it talks about Face Off, and talks about Con Air, talks about The Rock and stuff like that. So if you love kind of thinking about those movies too, then this one goes into that. So. I think I want to come up with my own rating system. I at least want to try to be a little original and stuff. So I don't know what my rating system is going to be. I'll think about it because I just had the idea to go ahead and do this today since I watched the movie. But so for now, I'll just use a star system. I'll just use the 5-star system. So I would give this one a solid 4 stars. It was really good, really funny. It wasn't anything like dirty or sexual in it or anything like that. Like I said, there's some drug use and there's language, but there's nothing like bad happening in the movie or anything like that. So so you can watch it with your teenage kids. It'd be perfectly fine. So it was a really fun movie. So I would highly recommend it. It's in theaters now. As I'm kind of thinking of stuff that I did want to say, there was a really good musical piece in it that I liked that I recognized from another movie. Let me see if I can pull it up. Yeah, it's so I think it's from Verdi, which he was composing music in the 1800s. But anyway, there's a piece, and it says La Forza del Destino, and that's all the Italian that I feel comfortable saying on camera with my terrible accent and not knowing how to speak Italian. But that was the name of it. I recognize it from a movie, Bronson, with Tom Hardy. There's a really good scene with it. This one is a different, that they use in this movie is a different, I guess, composition of it, a different recording. But it was like the same piece that I recognized, and they used it very, very good as well. I love how they use it in Bronson, but they used it really well in this movie too. So if I think of anything else that I missed, I may come back and add it again, just because I haven't done this before. And so if it looks kind of funny and chopped up, just know that maybe I went back and edited. And a late edition here, it may be, it's a little bit later, so it may look slightly different. But just a late edition, the Paddington 2 moments of this movie, like Pedro Pascal convinces Nick Cage that this powerful, like I think it was like favorite movies, and it was like one of them was Paddington 2, and like, oh yeah, so I cried in the whole movie, and like so he shows it to Nick Cage, and Nick Cage is crying as they're watching it. So, and they actually have like there's later a connection to Paddington 2 as well. That's really funny. So somebody, if anybody out there has seen Paddington 2, you're gonna have to tell me about it. What it's all about. But I mean, the thing was though, I still related to that because a movie like that recently hit me was the Mitchells versus the Machines, the Sony computer animated movie about the family that comes together to fight evil robots. I mean, first of all, it's just a great movie. It's really fun and funny. But it also like it has moments that make me cry. Like there are three moments in that movie that always make me cry, and I watched this movie multiple times now. So yeah, I was like, even I can relate to that. Like, oh, they love Paddington too. I have my movies like that. They're really cheesy, but like I connect to and can make me cry for stupid reasons. So I wanted to make sure I pointed that out. And I did want to say here too. I was just thinking of another movie that it had reminded me of it towards the end, where they're kind of all the action's happening now. It reminded me of Hot Fuzz, the British movie with Simon Pegg and Nick Frost, directed by Edgar Wright, if you know who he is. Anyway, that movie. I won't say everything about the plot of it, but there's just a point in the movie where it just goes from like just a reasonably, nice movie about cops to like crazy action movie where people are diving through the streets and pulling guns out of everywhere. And they're kind of doing all the, that action stuff. Like, again, same thing in this movie. They kind of talk about all this action stuff and these movie lines and these things. And later in the movie, they actually do them. So it's the same thing. So anyway, this movie reminded me of that just towards the end where they're doing like the car chase. And they're doing, they're running from the cartel and everything and kidnappings. So, all very like stereotypical cheesy movie stuff, that we love, that we just, because like we get invested. I was invested. Like, you got to, because his daughter ends up getting kidnapped at one point. So it's like, oh my gosh, he's got to save the girls. Like, what do we do? And so, you're still like invested in all of that. So I think that's pretty much it. We'll just leave it there for episode 2 of Give Me the Anecdote. Sorry, I don't know if that name sounds cheesy. I guess I need to get some feedback on that. But anyway, that's what I'm going with for now, until I hear different. So I'm kind of wanting to maybe make these in the future and kind of like segments, just to kind of like keep interest. Maybe like 2 or 3 segments an episode, or maybe just one. I don't know. Maybe a lot of my inspiration on this is going to be This American Life. So there may be a point in the future where if we're telling stories, I may do it This American Lifestyle and put some music and stuff to it. Again, all of this I'm just gonna kind of figuring out, just playing with right now. So we'll figure it all out. But that at least kind of you're getting an idea of where I would like this to go, and hopefully maybe there will be something. Hopefully there'll be something in here that everybody can find. I don't expect everybody to be interested in everything I have to talk about, or even agree with everything I have to say. So there may be topics that I talk about, and maybe people I talk to that may not be for you to listen to or watch, and that's fine. I'm going to try to have a variety of stuff and try to keep it interesting, try to keep you interested. Try to follow those 3 things that I talked about: make you laugh, make you cry, and try to teach you something. So so I'll probably break it up into segments, a very This American Life style. If anybody's ever listened to that radio show on NPR, that's like, it's been running for forever, and it's just an amazing show about stories. And so was very much inspired. I'm sure if anybody that's heard it, they probably know that I'm very much inspired by that show. So this I kind of want to model a little bit after that, and like I said, do the storytelling and talk about stories in a lot of different ways. And actually, when I was talking about doing reviews of stuff, I actually was thinking of doing a review of some of the This American Life spinoffs, like the Serial podcast and maybe the S-Town podcast at some point, if anybody hasn't listened to those. So those may be something else too that I may review, just some, just things that I'm interested in, and maybe just share and see if there's any, if they interest you. So I did also want to add right here, again, reiterating how thankful I was that Shaela did the first episode with me. So if you haven't watched it yet or haven't listened to it yet, I know that she would definitely appreciate it, you giving it some of your time. If you can't listen to all of it, you just listen to parts. I think there's a lot of good out there, for people to hear. I think stuff that people can relate to, and that, hopefully they'll be encouraged to tell their story one day, whether it's to me or to whoever. Hopefully they'll tell their story as well, and we can, try to all help each other through stuff like that and be there for each other. So, yeah, if you haven't had a chance, please give that a listen. And if you haven't, watched the Your Life the movie video that I made, if you haven't watched that yet, if you wanted to give that a try as well, or it might even be good to go back and watch it if you haven't watched it in a while or whatever. Because it might give you a better context now that you know Shayla's story, and kind of she was in the middle of a lot of that at the time. It may make a lot more sense. So I don't want that to really fall by the wayside. I really wanted to, talk about that a little bit more, and just encourage everybody to give that a listen. And if you can find me on Spotify, and you can follow me on there. I don't know if there may be a way to follow me on YouTube. I'm just kind of winging it right now. So, but anyway, yeah, if you can do that if you're interested, and then you can just keep track of anything else new that I put on here. Anyway, thank you for listening again. And like I said, I'll try to make these pretty regularly. And for now, I'm just going to end with some of my best Nicolas Cage quotes that I love from his movies. Thanks, and bye. Put the bunny back in the box. I'm going to take his face off. Now, y'all without sin can cast the first stone.
No, no! Killing me won't bring back your damn honey! Oh no! Not the bees! Not the bees! Ah! I'm in a hotel, so I have to be quiet. Ah! Ah! Ah!